So I'm going to start to hop in here. I'm going to share my screen. And for people who join late, that'll be on them, right? All right, so everyone do me a favor, just give it a quick thumbs up, or just a few people just raise your hand virtually if you can make sure you can see my screen here. Okay, good. Everyone says they can see it. Everyone's raising their hand. Love it, love it. Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna kind of walk through this. All right, and again, if you're just joining us, make sure to drop your link to your, or not, either your LinkedIn link or drop in your company name and your role. So it looks like we've got a good mix here. Again, I wanted to kind of design this. If you all know and you attend a lot of these webinars, a lot of my webinars are really just focused on very frontline, very, very tactical. This is going to be a good mix of both. So I think whether you're a CEO, CMO, CRMO, Jen, you have to tell me, CRMO, Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer? Is that Jen? Is that what the CRMO? Yes. Okay, good. I nailed it. I used intuition. I figured it out. So look, everyone can see my screen. I'm gonna hop into this, and probably we're gonna go for about 25 to 30 minutes today, and then I'm gonna try to weave in your questions as they come up. So if there's an area you want me to go deeper in, there's an area you want me to clarify, please let me know. Also, a bit of housekeeping. We've got a really amazing follow-on set of webinars over the next 2 weeks. Becca from my team will drop the link to make sure you get signed up for those. Next week, I actually have two really amazing people. One is Chris Walker. If you guys are on LinkedIn, you might know Chris Walker. Chris Walker runs a marketing version of Skaled, the performance agency for marketing. Aaron Wells, yes, Chris is amazing. So Chris is going to be on, and then we have another gentleman by the name of Joe Mollings, that if you don't follow Joe Mollings, Joe is amazing. Joe is one of the leaders and pioneers in all things talent and human capital. And so myself, Joe, and Chris are going to talk about using outside experts. And I'm going to touch on this today and how organizations are going back to market from not just thinking about full-time, they're really rethinking kind of the human capital and the scaling process. So if that is of interest to you, there is the link. Becca dropped it in. Make sure to sign up for next week. You get me, Chris, and Joe. You get a lot of, the energy is going to be some next level stuff. I might have to make sure Joe isn't allowed to have coffee or something. So it's going to be a really great session. So I'm going to dive into today's topic, which is how to start to think about back to market. And again, if you're a seller, drop your question in there. I'm happy to get as tactical as we need to. If you're a COO and again, you want to think about how this applies to your business, Jake, I'm in this business. How do you see this applying? Be selfish. You can drop it in the Q&A. You can leave it as anonymous, but you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And so as I think about this, and as we think about this kind of go back to market. So what does back to market mean? Well, back to market means is that over the last 60 days, I have easily, and I think this is conservative, talked to 200 plus sales leaders and CEOs. And I have to tell you, there are more people in the bucket of, we actually are going to hit our Q2 number or our revised target. We're actually doing okay. We're actually starting to hire again. Then the bucket of, Jake, our life's on fire, right? And so what I think a lot of people are kind of in this mindset of, Glenn, thanks for dropping your LinkedIn link in there. We're in the mindset now of like, we've got to start to prepare, and not just prepare in terms of how we think about what we did before and doing more of the same, but what did COVID teach us that we need to now apply going forward? And so hopefully today, what I'm going to do is give you all some very tactical things that whether you're an executive or someone on the front lines, you're going to be able to take and implement within your org. But again, if you have specific questions, drop those in. If you all don't know me, you signed up for this webinar, so I appreciate it. If you don't know me and you signed up, extra props to you. I'm Jake Dunlap. I'm the CEO of Skaled. Skaled is we're moving more and more toward this term, performance agency for sales, which really means, we come in and work just like a consulting firm, but we're focused on results. We're focused on more results of how you drive and create a really repeatable outbound engine, and you're optimizing that, how you're creating a repeatable sales process and optimizing your sales process over time, and account growth as well too. So if any of you are interested, you're starting to think about those things, please, send me a private message. We can set up some time. Because the mindset shift for sales that we have to move to is the same one that we have with marketing. We have to move to performance mindset, right? And what are the lead measures that equal the lag measures of quota attainment? Right now, most of the sales coaching and most of what happens in a sales organization is not focused on the actual lead measures, which is optimizing the bottlenecks. Has anybody read The Goal? I'll put like a quick type of yes into the chat if you've read The Goal. If not, the book is around, it's an oldie but goodie. I read it in grad school. It's kind of a go-to MBA. I guess none of you have read it, but it's a great book about the theory of constraints. And it's told in a story. Jesus Vargas, thank you. You've read it. I appreciate you. The Goal talks about the theory of constraints. And what we don't do a very good job of, thank you, Myron. Myron's read it. So go pick up The Goal. It's an oldie but goodie. Imagine a logistics book told in a fictional format. That's all I've got to say. So do what you can with it. So as you all are thinking about the theory of constraints, which is that in a sales and marketing organization, we always have to be looking at what are the limiting factors to then equal quota or equal revenue achievement or equal lead achievement, whatever your lag measure is. And so as we go through this, I'm going to talk about some new plays in your arsenal that need to be, call it kind of mission critical to this back to market strategy. As we go through this. So just a little bit about us and Skaled and the work that we're doing. I see we've got some current clients who joined too. Appreciate all of you for joining. So I'm going to talk about what COVID really exposed. And, before I jump into it, I want us to think about this. We have had an all-time economy for a long time. And we're even, if you follow the stock market at all, you're even seeing what's happening with the market. We had a little bit of a dip last week, but it's already starting to come back up. I haven't looked today, so I don't know. It could be like Jake, the world is tanked. No, it's just down 13 points. So we had an all-time economy. And what happened is most organizations had no preparation plan. Nobody could have predicted COVID, but what we could have predicted is like things are going to get harder or more difficult, or there's going to be some type of economic downturn. And what we saw was a systemic problem across organizations that nobody had put in place or even done a drill for their company on what happens if our market tightens. Nobody. And so the default was, and again, as I'll kind of go into this, we were treating everyone as a buyer. Prior to COVID, you had your total addressable market, and your sales organization and marketing organization was constantly marketing to these people. You put together your ideal customer profiles, you put together your lists, and we treated everyone as a buyer. And so what happened is when COVID hit, we didn't have a contingency plan about how to better segment our audience to understand like what happens if we need to get really narrow and only focus on a certain area. We also had been very lazy and lax in the quality of our messaging. We have continued over the last 5 years, really since 2015 to now, to move more and more toward efficiency measures. How many more activities can we do? How many more activities per rep versus effectiveness measures, right? Not necessarily. It's not always about more. At times it's about quality plus quantity equals optimal, plus X quantity equals optimal results, not volume equals results. And I'm going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn and why LinkedIn is such a core component of this. And for a lot of you who are executives, LinkedIn might not have been on your radar before today, but I certainly hope it is. And what COVID really made us realize from a marketing and sales standpoint is that every marketing organization is doing this already, but every sales organization needs to make sure that we have customers and clients in 3 very distinct buckets. That we have clients that are in the ready to buy bucket, and that is where we are going highly customized, more targeted messaging. We have clients in the middle that with the right value prop, we can shift them into that first bucket, or they're in the not ready and we need to have a long tail nurturing plan. Right now, most sales organizations and sales development organizations are kind of treating people in one size fits all. And as we go back to market, as we think about what comes next, we have to change that paradigm. Every single sales organization needs to be running a more sophisticated set of plays that really allows them to spend time with where the time is best spent versus sharing time across everyone relatively equally. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sales operations. I'm going to talk about a few other departments as well too, and how they need to play into this. But this is the big piece. As you go back to market, we no longer can afford to have a mindset where we are simply treating every play that we run in marketing and in sales as generic, right? And I've got some things to talk to you about. So I'm going to talk about the kind of two themes for today are about modern outbound. How can we start to generate new leads in this new environment? And I'm going to talk about, like what I teased to in the beginning, this idea of sales performance. And how do we change the mindset of our sales organizations to where we're not just thinking about performance on a monthly or quarterly basis and looking at the data, but instead we've got enough data now to be making changes in real time. So why modern, why we need to think about this, okay? And I hope this really, really wakes a lot of you up, right? That every day, and I mean, look, in the COVID world, I don't have the stats of what that equals. I'm guessing it's, maybe not double, but 50% higher. So imagine the core to many companies' outbound and marketing strategy has been email. And let me tell you why we love email. We can measure it. We can measure opens and clicks and replies. We love things that we can measure. And when email marketing really took off in B2B, called late 2000s-ish, early 2010s, it worked phenomenally because there was this HubSpot play where you would develop pillar content, you'd break it into smaller content, and then you'd have this like little beautiful content calendar. The problem is when this was designed, there weren't 128 million emails sent every day, or maybe now it's 200 million sent every day. There were 20, 40, right? Not everybody was running the same B2B play. And so now the issue we've seen with marketing teams is that because email is the easiest thing to track, I sent an email to myron.lasher@xyz.com. Myron opened, clicked a link. I cookied him, then he visited the website, MQL. We love it. We love email. The problem is the effectiveness of email continues to decline, but we keep dumping more generic shit into the basket. And so for all of us, as we go back to this kind of back to market strategy, we've got to think about it's not just about email anymore. Email is still a component of it, but it's not just about email, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. We have new buyers, right? I think the stat that I saw recently was millennials are involved in up to 70% of decisions made within B2B organizations, okay? And when you think about that, it's not that they're always the decision maker, but that doesn't matter, that they're influencing the decision. And so how do millennials want to communicate? Do millennials read and pore over email newsletters? Not as much, right? New technology, right? We've created now in the sales tech stack, and this might be shocking for a lot of you. I haven't seen like the 2019 report, but I remember the 2018. We're at almost 1,200 sales only technologies now. 1,200. Marketing's at like 10,000 or something now. So we as organizations have to make sure that our team is able to leverage these to maximum effectiveness, not just another way to hit send all. The problem is we've just reverted to hitting send all because it's easier versus being the modern buyer is going to require a more complex journey. And that's the theme that I want you all to pick up on. And then the next is LinkedIn, okay? That if you think about where your buyer's eyeballs are, LinkedIn, as of this week, is the number 16th most visited website in the United States. 16. Think about that. Out of all the websites in the US, all of them, Google, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, okay? And then for all of you in B2B, I will briefly mention TikTok. You really don't need to pay too much attention to it for the next 6 months. TikTok is the fastest growing app from a revenue standpoint on the App Store. So if you don't think TikTok's going to be, it might just be people dancing and doing funny shit now. I am telling you, you're already starting to see these motivational videos, these B2B videos come in. TikTok is going to be an interesting one, especially as you see more and more as we move past millennials, we go into Gen Z. You're going to see more, TikTok, I think, emerge as an interesting platform, particularly for certain types of products, lifestyle B2B products or industries. But what this means is our plays have to be more complex. So as we go back to market for outbound, we can't just keep sending a bunch of emails, okay? It can't be. It's not working. okay? For a lot of our B2B clients, and here's what I want to say. I'm not married to LinkedIn. It could be Instagram. It could be Facebook. And all of you to start this process should audit your last 100 buyers on social media. You just create a basic spreadsheet. You put the social media, have they posted in the last 30 days? Have they posted in the last week? Yes or no on all the major platforms. And then you'll start to see, are these people active? Yes or no? And I think for a lot of you, if you are in B2B, and chances are if you follow me, you are in B2B sales, your audience is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's audience is growing ferociously month over month, right? They are continuing to grow, continuing to get more people active, right? But the strategy on LinkedIn has to change. And so as you go back to market, here are the kind of the things I want you to think about with your new outbound strategy. The first concept is it's no longer calls and emails and direct mails here. And I'm even going to put LinkedIn in mails here because it's just another version of kind of spam. And LinkedIn organic and posting over here, it's integrated. That with every single one of our clients, what we're doing is we're front loading LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, I can actually build a little bit of relationship capital before I actually ask for a meeting, or I can educate you in a format to where you're not unsubscribing or you're not getting inundated on your phone. And so a lot of the sequences that we're running are heavily starting with LinkedIn. Then if they're not active, you're moving forward into calls and emails, right? But if they are active for, like, let's say 20% of your target market, you're actually going to build some relationship capital to dramatically increase the likelihood of getting a positive reply. And so some of the things that go into that are adding new buyers, right? This isn't going to be an ad for LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but I will tell you, if you run a B2B company, LinkedIn Sales Navigator should be 100% purchase. I make no money off of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I should try to work that out. I should try to see if I can get some type of referral fee or some endorsement fee. But the reason that adding more buyers, I want you to think about this. This is for my marketers and my CEOs, and this is what I want you to think about, is around like Sales Navigator. Imagine you sell into directors of operations in companies with over 500 employees. I'm just making something up. Using Sales Navigator, I can connect with 82 of those exact people in 12 minutes. You can literally expand, and your sales team and everybody can connect with all of your relevant buyers in 1 year. It is better than any email newsletter you'll ever have, right? They can unfollow you. Sure, that's a version of unsubscribe, right? But I'm telling you, what we're seeing leading teams do is that they're connecting with everybody in their territory from the very beginning. Because the second piece is, that way, when they put content out on LinkedIn, those people all see it without even having to do some type of direct message, right? And then within Sales Navigator, there's a tab that says has posted in the last 30 days. Then for the 20% of people that are active, they're commenting on people's posts. The thing that most people don't realize is most people get 0 comments on their average post, or 1 comment. So if that sales team is adding their entire market, that means every sales rep has now become the marketer of their own territory, right? Every sales rep controls they've connected with 2,000 people over the course of a few months. Now, marketing is enabling them to produce content. I'm not going to go today into how to produce content. Feel free to DM me. We've got a whole playbook on it. But then the sales team is maybe just sharing a couple of pieces of content a week that are relevant to that audience that they see. They're then looking at those buyers and what they're posting, and they're commenting. Then, once they've done that, we move to calls and emails. So imagine now, I've interacted with 2 of your pieces of content, or I've liked or commented on some of the same posts you've liked or commented on. And now I'm then asking, I've built some level of awareness, some level of perception, and then I'm going in for the calls and emails. So I want you to imagine the quality of the strategy I just laid out. And in tools like Outreach.io, you can execute this entire thing, right? SalesLoft, Outreach, whatever you use. But you can execute this entire play in that, right? Step 1 is creating the list, adding people, and looking at the people that have commented. Step 2 is commenting on people's posts, waiting 2 or 3 days, commenting again. And then if they're not active on LinkedIn, you skip straight ahead to the calls and emails. So that's the play. It's integrated. So as you think about go-to-market, I hope, and again, if you guys have questions about LinkedIn, keep dropping the questions in here. I've got a few, not a ton, but keep dropping the questions in here. Let me know if this is resonating with everyone. Continue to let me know if there's a topic that you want me to go deeper on here. But again, when I want you to think about modern outbound is if your clients and prospects are active, lead with LinkedIn as a part of the strategy, because the quality of interaction is unlike any other platform: emails, calls, and direct mail, right? So lead with LinkedIn. If they're not on LinkedIn, then you go to your core. You go to these other pieces. But no longer is it LinkedIn stuff over here, calls and emails. It's integrated, right? So this is the modern outbound play. That if you're thinking about this, and what you're also doing is turning on the brains and allowing your team to do what salespeople did 10 years ago, which is think and put together a thoughtful message and thoughtful versus just executing a system. Since we've moved to that, the amount of people that are hitting quota is declining dramatically year over year. Since we moved, the system is not working. You know, we like the term more volume so much that we are putting blinders on that there are less sales development teams and less people hitting their top of funnel quotas than ever. And it's because we're trying to emulate the exact plays marketing ran, and we're not putting in place those buckets and customizing to certain groups. So if you want to think about how you're going to change your go-to-market, it's about making sure that your organization is pointing in the right direction and spending more time in that bucket one, getting those bucket two people into the bucket one, and integrating LinkedIn into a key part of your strategy. And so, again, I'd love some questions here about modern outbound, about demand generation. Drop me some questions in here, and I'm going to move on to kind of my next piece after that. I do have one question. In India, we're still using softwares like, I think it's Vimo, and other digital sales assistant apps like Vimo for doing sales and sales activity. What do you think that companies in India will also start using popular services like LinkedIn Sales Navigator and LinkedIn for delivering sales for the organization? So that's it. That what happens with a lot of companies, and I see this a lot. I did actually a session with, I think it was 60 top Indian tech companies, was it last week? And the consistent thing that I see about in India is, with Indian companies that we either work with directly or indirectly, is there's always this concept of how do we automate it? How do we automate it? How do we automate it? How do we make it easy? And I think the key is that you have to temper that. And that's where Sales Navigator, and again, you can still have that for the 80% of your clients. But for 20, again, if you're not going to have a trifurcated strategy, which I at least have a bifurcated, right? Where for our top clients, and we know because they look just like our other customers, we're going to use a more targeted approach. And our reps are going to be spending 20% of their time doing less, higher quality outreach. And then we're going to be doing the more automated activities. So that's my answer for you, Mr. Sharma. I hope that's helpful. Glenn Ebersole, what's going on, Glenn? I appreciate it. Appreciate the question here. He says, I'm a passionate user of LinkedIn. I post all of my published articles on LinkedIn. Today, I have more than 22,000 followers. And within a day or two after my post, I see anywhere from a low of 500 and highs to more of 3,000. So again, what Glenn's got a question here too. What strategies, tactics would you recommend to leverage the posting of the content in these views to existing clients and prospects? So that's a great question. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word posting on LinkedIn, they automatically think of people that are being egotistical or bragging and like, who am I to post, etc. I want you to think of it differently. That LinkedIn is like a networking event that's happening 24/7. And by putting a post out, you are getting yourself a 5-minute speaking spot at that networking event. Because guess what? I've curated the room because I've added my followers. So imagine I've curated a room of followers. I can then get a 5-minute speaking spot every day to add value to their lives. That is what posting on LinkedIn is. If you're an executive, for all my CEOs, COOs, it's why you have to be active on LinkedIn. Again, DM me, send me a note in the message. We can set up a private conversation because CEOs need to be the face of their organization. We see this across our client base. The engagement with target buyers when the executives are posting versus the company is nowhere, there's no comparison. And so individuals now are becoming the face of companies. And I think that's a big part of this. So what you can do and the other reason to create content is I want you to imagine this. So Glenn produces a piece of content. Now, when Glenn gets a new connection request, he can say, hey, John Smith, I put out this article, that's particularly for chief legal officers and ways that they're handling remote work from what we're seeing. I hope this adds value to you. What do you think that chief legal officer now thinks about Glenn? Do you think he thinks salesperson? Because Glenn wrote the article. If Glenn is resharing his company stuff, then that comes off as salesy. If Glenn takes the time, and my friends, it takes an hour and a half to write like an 800-word article, right? So again, that is the high level. That now this chief legal officer views Glenn as an expert and then potentially as somebody he wants to meet with. People will choose to meet with people. And so if they come to your profile and they see sales account executive or CEO and it's very pitchy, it's just your resume, it doesn't talk about the impact you have on the space, then you're going to get less connections. So that's it. Why you should be producing content is that if you want to up your level of meetings that your organization is able to set, each individual needs to feel like their own person. So when they're reaching out to me, I view them as a thought leader. So that's the big reason why you should be posting content and how to use your own content as a part of that. 2 business publications, create content as educational and innovative. Yeah, I mean, so Glenn, my advice here, so Glenn obviously publishes in some columns, but you don't need to. I've got SDRs, sales development reps, that are putting out an article a week, and they're using that article to kill it, right? So it's really not that difficult to train these people how to repurpose marketing content in their own voice and how to take a client conversation and put out 1 or 2 posts a week, or at least create 1 article. So that's the high level there. I'm going to get into some more here, and then I'm going to come back to a few more questions. But again, I want you to think about this if you're a CEO. If your company is connecting with 50 to 100 connects, that's up to 130 people in your target market and their buyer circle that you could be connected to by the end of the year. There's no other platform in the world you can do this. And then I can produce content that touches those people every single day. This is why this is the new play, right? So again, this is why LinkedIn is a core component. If they are active on LinkedIn, I can create my own community, and each seller can create a community in their territory and their region. If you have tens, hundreds, thousands of sellers, and they are all now doing this to the market, right? I did a post last week, if you all saw it. LinkedIn as a company posted 28 times last month. And by the way, this isn't about LinkedIn. This is about AI. The stats are the same for every company. LinkedIn as a company posted 28 times last month. Do any of you have a guess how many times their employees posted last month? Or how many of their employees posted? Actually, I just thought of this. Not even how many times, how many of their employees posted? 6,500. 28 from LinkedIn corporate. 6,500 employees posted, and guess what? Some of them probably posted twice. 28 compared to 13,000. My friends, if you empower and you embed this LinkedIn strategy, marketing can't touch this. There's no opportunity. It's not even possible, right? So again, I just hopefully some good food for thought. So obviously, I think this is why what they want. They want a salesperson who gets their space, and most professionals say LinkedIn's their number 1 place for content. So if you're not sold, I hope you are now. Okay, so I'm going to move on to point number 2, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I'm going to talk maybe just for 5 minutes about this, and then we'll get into some Q&A, because I really want a chance for all of you to ask those questions. I know you all have questions about your business, how you're going back to market, and I really want to be a resource for you to help as a part of this. So again, I talked about this before, that we see the future of how you're going to run your sales organization is the same way that we're running a marketing organization, which is about performance. And again, I've reiterated this, performance doesn't mean more, always. It means quality. It means that we're going to be analyzing the quality of, hey, we're running this outbound sequence. Here we've pumped 3,000 people through this. We see the results. So guess what? When my team comes back into the office on Monday, we've changed the sequence. And guess what? I do that every week to 2 weeks. Every week, I'm using data to rapidly iterate on best practices of what's working and what's not working. We don't have that mindset right now in sales. Right now, in sales, our mindset is primarily focused on micro adjustments because right now your sales operation staff is dramatically understaffed, right? And I think where most people need to move, I'm going to make 2 points here, is that we're spending X dollars to optimize our marketing performance, right? Some of you are probably spending tens, 20s, hundreds of thousands of dollars on performance advertising, okay? The rest of you have 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, sales development reps. The amount of, you're spending X on your performance agency, 10,000 a month, 5,000, 10, 15, 20,000, and you're spending this much to optimize the performance of that same amount of investment just in people. We have to change that mindset. We have to start to think of sales operations they can't do everything. They can't be your Salesforce admin. They can't produce a report. They can't do this. They can't do all this other stuff. They need to be able to optimize in a performance mindset. Every organization, as we go back to market, needs to have a performance operations person for outbound sales activities. I want you to think about this. Maybe your sales team is the one doing the prospecting. You've got 5, 10, 20 sellers prospecting every single day. They're touching 10,000 plus people in a month or a quarter. And you're spending this much time to have someone go in and optimize that. It makes no sense, friends. It makes absolutely no sense. There's a reason you invest in marketing. We've got to bring that same focused performance mindset. That doesn't mean more. It doesn't mean automate more. It means optimize based on what's working. That's the mindset we have to start to bring to sales, right? You're spending X to optimize marketing. You're spending nothing to optimize sales. We've got to change that mindset, and you need to have a person or an agency like us or somebody dedicated to optimizing outbound. I don't care if it's an internal analyst, but again, and you're looking at the strategy of the steps that are working, and you're looking at not just the strategy, you're looking at the quality of the content and the interactions in each steps, and you're optimizing for both. So that's how you have to think about that, okay? Next, reshape enablement. Right now, your sales enablement organization is completely overwhelmed, and they're putting out half the content that we see that marketing puts out or enablement puts out, sales never uses. It's a complete waste of time, right? We've got this sales enablement group that's here to enable sales, but they're stretched so thin, and they're working on priorities that are unrelated to actually driving revenue because they're not tied to a number. And so they're not able to get the right content to the right buyer at the right time, right? And so when you get that right content at the right time, that's when you get, the right buy, right? That's the acronym here, right? And the answer is more content. I can tell you there's not a single sales organization we've ever worked with, big or small, that says, I have all the materials that I need to be successful. And again, imagine you do a pillar piece of content. Okay, you do an ebook or you do a blog post, and it's for, let's talk about best practices in operations for industrial manufacturing. What best-in-class organizations then do is they take the extra 2 hours and then they put a twist on it for industrial manufacturing, consumer packaged goods manufacturing, agriculture manufacturing, machines or healthcare manufacturing. So what they do is they take this content and they spend a very small amount of time repurposing it to make it for the right buyer. Going forward, this type of quality of content is what is going to be required for people to be able to cut through the noise. You're not going to be able to cut through the noise with the same generic stuff. You send out this thing that's director of operations. Actually, I'll make this very tangible. I was talking to one of our clients that we run their LinkedIn for their exec team, their company, and for their and work with the sales org. And we talked about it like, you're talking about the future of work. But you got to talk about the future of work to an engineer in this type of business. Then I know it's for me. Then I'm going to take a sales action. But if you just consistently put out high-level content, it's not specific enough. Think about your B2C. Think about your behavior as a consumer. You expect it to feel customized, right? You don't expect it to be just generic bullshit. You expect it to feel customized. So I think for all of you, as you're going through this, you have to keep in mind that the content needs to be relevant. And it's no longer acceptable to do this generic all shit for outbound and for marketing to support sales without going micro. It's just taking that piece of content and spending an extra 2 hours by just changing certain keywords to make it more relevant to your buyers. And so I look at, kind of these top 2 trends around outbound. We've got to get away from the send all. It's just not working. I mean, guys, the send all is not working. You see the stats. Stop putting your head in the sand. It's time to change. Integrating LinkedIn is a good way to do that. And again, it's just more complex than what we're used to. It's still very actionable. You can still run it in very specific tools. Then the other, as we go back to market, the other big point I want to drive home is using sales operations or an outside agency like us to always be optimizing performance and always be optimizing content. The battle will be won. Again, more and more brands and B2B companies need to think of themselves as a media company. You're vying for people's attention. You're vying for people's eyeballs. That's really all marketing is. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm trying to get your eyeballs. I'm trying to get my sales team to then use the content or create their own content to then get your attention. If you're not thinking of your marketing that way, you're still marketing like we did in 2010. Your job is to draw the right relevant eyeballs to engage with your brand or your sales team. That's where content comes into play, and that's where your outbound comes into play. So, my friends, that is what I wanted to cover today. All right. And I hope a lot of you who are C-level executives, we've got a lot of CEOs on here, which is great to see. We've got a lot of senior business development, VPs of sales operations, and then frontline folks. And again, hopefully on the front lines, you can see exactly what you can do. That, hey, God, Jake, you know what? I am sending out this generic healthcare email. I do need to go create snippets for 3 different buyer types so I can make it slightly more customized, right? And so I'm going to hop into some Q&A. So we're going to spend the last 2 minutes here, or not 2. I'll probably spend the next 7 or 8 minutes kind of cleaning up some of this Q&A here. Let's go into this. What recommendations do you have to get marketing to change and refocus their strategies when they don't seem to understand that past practices aren't working? Anonymous attendee. I get why you put that as anonymous, my friend. So here's what I want you to see. And I got to tell you, we've got a client right now. They've got 50 plus people. Actually, one of their people is on this call right now, and so he can attest to this. You don't need marketing to run the plays we're talking about. This is about you as a salesperson or an individual or whoever, or a sales leader. You're just producing content on LinkedIn. It's a free platform. Your company doesn't own your LinkedIn. You own your LinkedIn. And so what we see is sales organizations just taking this on their own in-house. They're taking what marketing has and the collateral and teaching their sales organization how to adapt that to be content that their buyers are interested in. So you don't need marketing's permission to add people to your network. You don't need marketing's permission to produce content, right? And if you're using content that they've already put out and repurposing it, then you get an extra blessing. So that would be my piece of advice, and go from there. Let's go. And so I hope that helps for all of you. Again, if you guys have more questions about this, just send me a private message on chat. We can set up some time. I'll answer this as a more another anonymous one. Again, it's more strategic. Any insight around selling a commodity and standing out in a crowded space? So again, that is where the specificity of your message and getting these people in your buyer network becomes so important. So again, if you're in a commodity or a very crowded space, you've got to find the niche, and you really need to understand your competition like nobody else. And so my best advice for anyone who's selling into a very crowded space is that when you start to become the person who's adding value about what's happening in the CRM space, people then say, oh, wait, what is Jake doing? And so these same principles apply, and they allow you to stand out where everyone else is just putting out generic. You're actually educating and making people smarter. And so these types of plays work even better when you're in a commoditized industry. All right. How do you convince clients that LinkedIn ads is good to grow revenue? So Maria, LinkedIn ads is not good to grow revenue for many clients. And I'm going to tell you why. LinkedIn ads are extremely expensive. And they can be effective. And again, I've talked to friends and again, like Chris Walker, actually, who's going to be on next week. And the CPMs are very high. And so you might be paying $20,000 for a customer. $10,000 for a customer. Now maybe if you're doing some lead capture campaigns, never do follower campaigns. Never. You can do better by just DMing people your company page and asking them to follow. So LinkedIn ads can be a really great augment to an organic strategy, right? You understand what's working organically, double down and put out relevant content to like additional audience. Again, to drive downloads, to drive leads, etc. So LinkedIn ads are only good if you have a higher average contract size, right? Or you have a high lifetime value. They stay your customer for 5 years. Other than that, LinkedIn is too expensive. Go to Facebook or Instagram. So I think, Maria, hopefully that helps from a when to use LinkedIn ad standpoint. Brian Barron asked a very specific question about using hashtags. No, you do not need to use hashtags. I literally just looked, we had a data scientist basically analyze 1,400 posts over the last, 4 months. And he just came back and posts with 0 hashtags. Now there's some outliers where people had used a shit ton of hashtags and it worked. But in aggregate, using 0 hashtags is better than using 1. So totally counterproductive. My gut tells me the reason is that, not that you can still use hashtags. I still use hashtags from time to time. It's more authentic. When you use a hashtag, people know that you're trying to get reach. And there's something about that in the human brain when we see that we're like, oh, look at Brian. He's trying to get reach over here. And so it goes away. So it's okay to use hashtag. I'm just telling you raw data, analyzing 1,400 posts with hashtags and no hashtags. 0 to 1, just 0 to 1. 0 outperforms by almost, I'll have to go look at the exact piece. So that would be that piece. So hashtags, nope, you don't need to use them. All right, my friends, hashtags and comments. Yeah, sure, why not? I don't know. I can't track comment data, so I can't speak to data there, but why not? You could do it. I'm all good. I'm good with it. Okay, I've got time for maybe one more question. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Becca, if you want, can you go ahead and drop again the link? Everyone, there's 2 things I want you to tune into. One is this Friday, right? Obviously, it's Juneteenth. I hope everyone is thinking about this, that this is top of mind right now for all of you. I'm going to be doing, it's our 100th weekly recap. So we've got some special things planned. So this Friday, starting at 9:30 Central, sign up for that. It should be fun. We're going to talk about the events of Juneteenth. We're going to talk about what other people are doing, but we're also going to kind of relive some of the experiences over the last 2 years. I turned 40 tomorrow. So tomorrow's my 40th birthday. So I'm going to do what I think a lot of people in quarantine do when they turn 40, which is nothing. So that should be exciting. But no, we've got some nice stuff planned. So tune in next Friday, this Friday, to this weekly recap number 100. If you're taking the day off, in observation of Juneteenth, if you're looking for something good to do, but a lot of value, impact, you want to get to know me better, there's some funny pictures going around that I'm not too proud of. Tune in 9:30 Central. We'll drop that in the chat. And then next Wednesday, same exact time, Chris Walker, Joe Mullings, talking about, again, going deeper on this idea of how to think about human capital and scaling. So both those links, please sign up. We'd love to have you as a part of it. Last comment is, what tools are we recommending for listening to prospect activity to measure which bucket they belong? Looking at 6 Sense, what ideal a tool in your opinion? So what he's asking about is, again, if I go back to this, and again, all of you, make sure follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on different social platforms. Starting to share a lot more on Instagram. I just want to go back to this slide here, these 3 buckets right here. So the question is around, how do I further narrow in? And there's actually a lot of data. Trust Radius just put out an article about what industries are doing well. There's another article I saw that says like top 100 performing e-commerce products. So I would use that data, again, because here's the thing. These predictive algorithms weren't built for COVID. They weren't built to say, what happens if there's a quarantine? Push button, figure it out. So I feel like you've got to actually be a little more manual right now. So some of the things I would think about is Bombara, B-O-M, I think it's B-O-R-A. Put it in the chat if you know Bombara.com. They do intent data. So they do reverse IP lookup to see people at this company are consuming content on these topics. So, John Salesintel.io, they integrate Bombara into their platform. ZoomInfo integrates it, a bunch of other people. So I would think about intent data. I would look at these industries that are performing again. Actually, you know what? Hey, if you guys can hold on, I'll even drop the link if I can find it here for this Trust Radius article, because I thought it was really helpful. So I'll try to get that for you. Oh, there it is right there. So let me get this for you. Here you go. All right, everyone, I'm dropping this into chat. If you bounced early, I'm sorry you missed this, because this talks about industries that are performing well. Boom. So go ahead, click that link, check that out. So John, that's what I would do. I wouldn't be looking at, like, to me, anyone peddling an algorithm right now that's going to help you to do your ICP coming out of COVID, don't get me wrong, there's some positive things about it, but I would be looking at, I would just be following trends for the next 3 to 6 months before I invested in an AI tool, for the simple fact that why I like Bombara data, and again, you can get that through Sales Intel, you can get that through ZoomInfo, is, those are people that are actively searching for topics that are related to you. So that's active, that's real time, versus historical algorithm telling me, doing predictive customer lookalike modeling where maybe 30 or 40% of that model is invalid. I still see some validity there, but I would maybe temper that with a little bit more gut and a little bit more just, kind of hack together data than I would other times. So everyone, I really appreciate you. Have an amazing Wednesday. I'm going to see you on Friday, and then I'll see you next Wednesday. Make sure to sign up. The links are here. And again, appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be sharing this with everyone via email in the next day or so. So be on the lookout. Share it with your executive team. I think this is something that's really, really important. I didn't send the article to everyone. Thank you, Becca. Hold on, everyone. Article is coming. Boom. Sorry. Okay, there's the article. Click on it right now before I close out the webinar, and you'll see that. And again, share this with your exec team. I think that there's some snippets in here that any exec team, any B2B company that's going back to market is going to get a lot of value out of this. If any of you, again, are looking for support with this, this is the bread and butter of what we're doing for organizations as we're adapting our process, and we're just going where the market's taking us and where the customers are taking us. So if this is something about reshaping your outbound or around how you're thinking about back to market, please email me, hit me up on LinkedIn, and really looking forward to talking to all of you and getting to know you. So have a great rest of your week, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.